the sudden silence.
In the middle of August 2026, the entertainment world stopped. A news alert flickered across millions of phones, carrying a headline that felt entirely incomprehensible. Actress Hayden Panettiere has died at the age of 36. For a generation that grew up watching her command the screen, first as the indestructible cheerleader in Heroes, and later as the fierce, troubled country star Juliet Barnes in Nashville, the news landed like a physical blow. She wasn't just a face on a poster. She was part of our cultural landscape. She had lived her entire life in front of our eyes, transitioning from a toddler in commercials to a global television icon. And yet, as the initial shock gave way to an avalanche of tributes from co-stars like Viola Davis and podcast hosts like Jay Shetty, a heavy, uncomfortable cloud of uncertainty settled over the news. How does someone who had just spent months bravely reclaiming her narrative, someone who spoke so openly about turning a corner and stepping into the light, pass away so suddenly at just 36 years old? Today, we are taking a respectful, comprehensive look at what we know, the timeline of events coming out of South Carolina, and the complex, beautiful, and heartbreaking life of a woman who was so much more than the headlines written about her. Let's look at the facts as reported by authorities and law enforcement. On Sunday, August 16, 2026, emergency services in Greenville, South Carolina, received a frantic 911 call at approximately 1:51 p.m. local time. The caller reported an unresponsive female inside a residence where Hayden had been temporarily staying. First responders arrived at the scene within minutes. According to logs and statements released by the Greenville County Coroner's Office, medical personnel found Panettiere in cardiac arrest. They immediately initiated advanced cardiac life support measures, battling frantically to revive her. But despite their best efforts, resuscitation attempts were unsuccessful. At 2:32 p.m., Hayden Panettiere was pronounced dead. Almost instantly, media outlets seized upon leaked or preliminary emergency dispatch terminology that referenced a possible overdose. That phrase caught fire online, spawning hours of frantic speculation across social media. However, law enforcement and medical officials stepped in to urge caution, emphasizing a crucial distinction. Emergency dispatch notes capture preliminary, real-time impressions of first responders rushing into a chaotic crisis scene. They are not official medical conclusions. By August 17th, an autopsy was completed. The coroner's office delivered a vital update. There were no signs of physical trauma. Furthermore, local police confirmed unequivocally that there was no evidence of foul play, no sign of a struggle, and no suspicious circumstances surrounding the scene. As of right now, the official cause of death remains undetermined, pending the results of exhaustive toxicology studies and follow-up medical examinations, which can take several weeks. Until those reports are finalized by medical professionals, any definitive claim about how she died is pure speculation. To understand the weight of Hayden Panettiere's life, you have to understand what it means to grow up as a child star in the relentless machinery of Hollywood. Hayden's journey began before she could even walk. At just 11 months old, she appeared in a Play School train commercial. By the time she was 4 years old, she was cast on the ABC soap opera One Life to Live. While other children were learning how to ride bikes and navigating school playgrounds, Hayden was memorizing lines under studio lights, managed closely by her mother in an environment where, as she later described it, everything was business. At age 10, she won widespread acclaim playing Cheryl Yost in Disney's massive sports drama, Remember the Titans, holding her own alongside Denzel Washington. She was precocious, fiercely talented, and possessed an innate magnetism that directors loved. But that early entry into the industry came with a devastating psychological toll. In her deeply vulnerable memoir, This Is Me, A Reckoning, published earlier in 2026, Hayden laid bare the dark side of her early career. She wrote candidly about how adult validation became entirely tied to her performance, suffering, and emotional distress. Grown-ups gave me positive attention when, as an actor, I failed, got sick, screamed and cried, killed, grieved, and suffered, she wrote. Is it any wonder why I've faced so many real struggles in my life? The entertainment industry treated her as a commodity, scrutinizing her growing body, her clothes, and her personal choices while she was still a teenager. In her memoir, she shared a chilling anecdote about an industry representative pulling her aside at age 16 before a press interview and handing her a happy pill, a moment she identified as her terrifying gateway into pharmaceutical dependency. In 2006, life changed overnight. Hayden landed the role of Claire Bennett in NBC's sci-fi phenomenon Heroes. Her catchphrase, "Save the cheerleader, save the world," became an instant pop culture touchstone. She was plastered on magazine covers and worshipped by millions of fans worldwide. Yet, off-screen, her personal life was beginning to fray. Her parents went through a bitter separation in 2008 while she was still filming the show, setting off a protracted, grueling divorce that didn't officially conclude until 2016. Following Heroes, she took on what many considered the defining performance of her career. Juliet Barnes in ABC's musical drama Nashville. Earning 2 Golden Globe nominations in 2013 and 2014, Hayden poured her absolute soul into the character, but art and life began to terrifyingly blur. Juliet Barnes battled severe postpartum depression, alcoholism, public scandals, and a grueling custody battle, mirroring the exact nightmares Hayden was fighting in her real life. Following the birth of her daughter Kaya with professional boxer Vladimir Klitschko in 2014, Hayden was struck by crushing postpartum depression. In a candid podcast interview with Jay Shetty just months before her passing, Hayden reflected on how public her pain was forced to be. "It felt like it never ended. I didn't know where Juliet began and Hayden ended. Playing Barnes was like looking in a funhouse mirror, seeing a distorted reflection, and diving headfirst into my own hell." When she bravely spoke out about her postpartum depression on live television in 2015, the backlash from corporate sponsors was swift and unforgiving. Brands dropped her, citing morality clauses, punishing her for having the courage to talk about a universal human medical condition. The years that followed were marked by intense personal battles, including struggles with alcohol and opioid addiction, abusive relationships, and the heartbreaking sudden death of her beloved younger brother, Hayden Panettiere, in 2023. For a long time, it felt to the public as though Hayden was fighting an exhausting uphill battle against the dark forces of her past. But the narrative wasn't ending in tragedy, or so everyone hoped. Earlier in 2026, Hayden did something extraordinary. She released her memoir, This Is Me, A Reckoning. Writing the book wasn't just a professional project, it was an act of profound self-preservation. She was taking her life back, putting her scars on paper, owning her recovery, and stepping out from underneath the shadow of tabloids and paparazzi. During her promotional interviews in early 2026, including her deeply emotional conversation with Jay Shetty, a transformed Hayden spoke about shedding her past demons. She described feeling like a phoenix rising from the ashes, stating that she felt she had shaken off the darkness, closed a heavy door, and opened a new one filled with exciting possibilities. She looked forward to a future where she could finally breathe. Her tragic passing at just 36 years old, leaving her just days away from what would have been her 37th birthday, leaves an aching void in the hearts of those who loved her work and rooted for her survival. Her father, Alan Skip Panettiere, remembered her in a statement as an incredible light and a force of nature who brought immeasurable love and joy to all who knew her and to the millions who watched her on screen. As we wait for the official findings from the Greenville County Coroner's Office, it is vital that we remember Hayden not by the sensationalized speculation of initial emergency calls, but by her resilience. She spent her entire life under a microscope, yet she consistently found the courage to stand back up, speak her truth, and help countless other women feel less alone in their own battles with mental health and addiction. She survived childhood stardom, the brutal glare of the media, and immense personal loss. While her story ended far too soon, the light she brought to the screen and the fierce, beautiful authenticity with which she fought for her own healing will never be forgotten. Rest in peace, Hayden.